Hello, my name is Josephine Ebejer Grech, and in this video I'm going to describe my lessons. I teach A-level biology lessons and I've been teaching us from the year 2000. That's quite a long time. So what is A-level biology? It is a very amazing subject. It's so fascinating. It's a 2 year course. The topics that we are studying during these 2 years are variety of living organisms. This is basically about classification of many different types of living organisms. The second part is biochemistry. And then the third part is cellular function and organization. So we learn about the cells and how cells become tissues and about organs and systems. And then we proceed to learn about maintenance of life. So where you have listed nutrition, that doesn't only mean that we are going to study human nutrition, the digestive system in humans. That is very, very, very interesting. But we also study nutrition and digestion in smaller organisms, like, for example, fungi, like the rhizobium. And then we also study digestion in herbivores, ruminants and non-ruminants. We call the others hindgut fermenters. Probably those of you who already did O-level and are thinking of choosing A-level biology, you would understand me when I mention some of these concepts that you have already covered in O-level. The topic transport doesn't only cater, we don't only learn about the circulatory system in human beings. That is very fascinating, and even while we are studying, we are learning as well how our body works, and we appreciate that a bit more. But it's interesting that in biology we don't only learn about human beings, as you know from O-level probably. We also learn about plants, even nutrition, photosynthesis, autotrophic nutrition, chemosynthesis. That is a very, very fascinating concept as well. And even about transport, we don't only learn about the human circulatory system, but also about circulation in insects, for example, circulation in fish, and respiration. Respiration, we go a little bit into more detail for those of you who already studied O-level. We do a little bit more detail as regards respiration of human beings. We have quite a lot of chemistry and equations, but nothing to be scared about because we teachers teach in the simplest way possible. And I'm going to also describe a bit the techniques that we use during the teaching as I go along in this PowerPoint, and also anaerobic respiration. Regarding section number 5, adjustment and control, the concept of homeostasis is so wonderful. I'm going to keep repeating how fascinating biology is, but it is truly amazing. And hormonal control, so we learn about our hormones, our thermoregulation, how we keep our body temperature constant, about the liver, a very important organ in our body, excretion, so we're going to learn about the kidneys, not only in humans, but also in insects, for example, in unicellular organisms that they don't have more than one cell, so they for sure they don't have any organs or systems, and immune system, immunity, who is not concerned with our health and well-being and keeping away from pathogens and diseases. So again, we're going to study this very important and amazing topic, immune system. Section 6, responding to the environment, nervous system. This is a part of this topic. You learned it during O-level, if you have done O-level, of course, because the nervous system is about the electricity going on in our body, as if to stimulate different parts to do different responses according to what the nervous part we are talking about. Stimulus reception, how does the light come to us and we perceive the things that we're seeing, and how do things come to our ears and we perceive the things and we make sense of them in our brain, and even the things that we feel, for example, the temperature around us, etc., etc., both in animals and in plants. The section 7, locomotion and support. So this is about our muscles and our skeleton and bones, but not only in humans, because it's interesting to know as well about insects, for example, or what if those worms that don't even have bones but have a skeleton out of water, hydroskeleton, how do they manage? It's so fascinating, and the more you learn, the more question marks you get, the more curiosities, and the more that cool, you feel like looking up information and researching to get to know more, because all this general information is so fascinating. Section 8, about genes and cell division and genetics and inheritance. How do we inherit certain traits and features? eh? Very interesting. Section 9, reproduction in plants. It's amazing to see all the mechanisms that are in plants and also in humans or in adult humans. It's so wonderful, especially to see the progress, how a human being starts from one cell and deep preparation before death, about the hormones involved in reproduction and all the processes that go on until eventually we end up with a baby and that grows into an adult. Evolution, right, again, evolution, to know the organisms, how they evolved by time and improved and the challenges they encountered during their lives and what they had to do to overcome those challenges. And after they overcame their challenges, they become even better and better organisms. And it's also side-loading anything for us in life, because even as humans, we are all the time encountering difficulties and different problems in our lives. But biology is that a practical example to look at the organisms, how they evolved, and how many challenges and life and death situations they encountered, and they managed to try to come up with different solutions and adapt in a way that survival of the fittest. And they survived and they evolved and became better and better and better. And then section 12 is biotechnology. Wow, this is so new. It is all the time like evolving, to say so, because biotechnology is that area of study that is all the time, there are all the time cool news about them and discoveries, and it is more than fascinating and more than amazing to study biotechnology. And the last part, that is section 11. This is not by mistake that it is there, because this is only just a snapshot from the syllabus that is quite, it has a lot of pages, is environmental biology. So people who love watching documentaries, they are going to excel in this wonderful part of the syllabus, right? Plus the content, this, all the topics, the lectures, etc. All right, there are also the practicals. The practicals are a very important part of A-level biology. And we start slowly, a bit at a time, learning hands-on activities. They were in the lab, out in the lab and doing experiments and getting all the information and techniques and learning how to do these practicals. So eventually, later on, after that, you finish A-level and you decide either to take another course at university regarding biology. There are many different courses, and eventually we are preparing you for your life at work. If you have enough your job in a lab, you will be prepared about the experimental practical techniques that you can use. And there are a lot of research areas of studies that involve research that for sure will require the actual practical hands-on techniques. So, how best to learn? For there are students who say, Mommies, everyone says that biology A level is so difficult. It's not easy, مش هيك? Jiena, when I talk about biology, I talk in the sec, like I'm amazed about the subject. I am really in love with biology because it's so amazing and it's so interesting. This is true. But I have to tell you from the very beginning that although it is so wonderful, and you will not get bored studying it for sure. But you require a lot of time and a lot of dedication. All right. But for those students who like say, Miss, but I'm feeling that I'm not good for it. You know what I tell you? The ingredients to succeed is not how clever and intelligent you are. Those are important as well. All right, but the most important thing is the motivation. If you are motivated, all right, and you say, yeah, I know it's challenging, I know I need to put in a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of dedication, a lot of study, all right, if you are determined, you have nothing less than other students and then me. That once upon a time I was like you, I was a student and I studied A-level biology. All right, so with determination and dedication of time and putting a lot of time into it, and the determination that I want to succeed no matter what. So that implies that if I have to spend hours and hours and hours of studying, I'm not going to feel like shidwaya, And another thing, the attitude, If you like whatever you do in life, you have to love it. Otherwise, don't do it. All right. And even if it is something that it's challenging, either you love it and you do it with love, or don't do it. All right. So, how best to study? Here, I'm going to also refer to research, all right, that I've done during all these years. Obviously, I'm a graduate and I never stopped learning. I'm all the time doing courses, but I study a lot from my students. I learn a lot from my students. I observe, and during my teaching, I learned from my students. And some things that I feel they are important in the methodology of my and pedagogy of my teaching, I'm going to share a little bit with you so that you start to understand me as a person, as a teacher a bit better. Cognitive of the learning of this brain here that is all the time working and trying to absorb and understand and make sense of things. Cognitive psychologists, these very important persons, have focused an entire area of study on the brain's ability to learn. Learning depends on many different aspects of the learner's environment, where you are studying. Are there a lot of distractions? Probably right now you are hearing my son's budgies in the background. Some people might get distracted with the sound of the budgies. But then you encounter other people who don't study if they don't have music on in the background, for example. So there are many different people, and every person is different. Every person is unique. So try to understand first what is best for you to study. So the environment around you. You might prefer studying in your room, and your room has to be spick and span and everything clean and everything organized to focus on your studies. Others might prefer studying in the kitchen where there is someone cooking or maybe someone washing dishes. And others might prefer studying in a cafeteria, taking a coffee and studying. Right? So try to learn about yourself, understand yourself best first, and then identify what is your best environment to study. Okay, so the psychology, your state of mind. How do you look at studying? Like, oh shit, I have to study. Or you say, I know that when I study, I'm investing for my future. Every single second I spend studying, it is as if I'm investing money in the bank. And the study, all right, at the end of the day, that grade on your certificate. How did you do in A-level biology? I got an A, I got a B, I got a C. That simple letter will stick with you forever. So either take the attitude of Shidwaya, come on, this you have so much to study, and no one is going to say you're not right, you are right. And it's another thing saying, yes, I know I have a lot of studying, but I'm not going to give up. I'm determined that I'm going to do it. And instead of spending time on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, or I'm going to select. I know it's fun, yes, no one is going to tell you it's not fun or play games on the video, etc. But if you think that studying is going to be beneficial for you, yes, I'm going to study because I love myself. I want to improve myself, because this grade that I'm going to get in my A-level certificate, even if like after a few weeks that you do the exam, you forget everything. But that grade is going to remain with you for all your lifetime, and that determines what job you're going to get later on. So the psychology is important, the state of mind. And the social situation also affects the social situation. For example, people who have everything and their parents or their carers are doing everything for them, preparing their breakfast, preparing their lunch and their dinner, and cleaning around, and loving them. And this study, I'm going to do housework, Of course, they have such a social situation. There are other people who say, Mommies, I have to do a part-time job. I have to sustain myself because I'm not financially that good like I was when I was young. And so I understand you a lot. Or others say, Miss, because I have someone in my family who's very sick and they require my attention. And sometimes my mind, isn't there on studying. And some people say this because my mother and father are separating and they are going through a divorce, or someone is very sick in my family. So there are many different types of social situations. I started this presentation by saying that everyone is unique. Okay, so by identifying and being aware of these three aspects is important. So you try to do everything in your powers to seek the best way for you how to study and how to learn. Okay. Fostering a positive and optimistic attitude can set the learner's mindset to higher attention. So always be positive, never grumble and say, oh, that's easier said than done. But we try to practice our brain, to practice our mindset to be positive. I'm going to study because I love myself and I want to do good. And the hours I'm studying, they are going to serve me for all my life. All right. Always be optimistic. All right. And fostering a positive and optimistic attitude can set the learner's mindset to higher attention. So it's normal that we get distracted and sometimes we don't have oh, I don't like studying, let me do something else. Today I don't feel like studying, But if you have a positive and optimistic attitude, that's going to increase your attention. All right? So, this is why you should have a very good relationship with your teacher or lecturer. I hate the term lecturer because a lecturer lectures. All right, I get the content out and I start reading the content. A, B, C are the first three letters of the alphabet. Understood? Okay, let's proceed. D, E, F are the second three letters of the alphabet. Understood? Let's proceed, lecturing. But a teacher teaches. I see myself as a facilitator, all right? Because when you love the subject, and as you know, I really love biology, and I always try to transmit my love, my passion for this subject to my students, because I really I want them to enjoy studying, okay? So a good relationship with your teacher who teaches, who is a facilitator for you, you then read the notes, try to figure them out, do additional research. Today you have ample video clips on YouTube that can support what you are reading about, because sometimes with animations and videos and actual pictures, you can understand better, all right? But it's important to have a relationship with your teacher so that wherever you don't understand well, you don't feel shy to ask, as teachers are there for only one reason: to make your lives easier. We want to see you achieving. So never, never, never feel hindered or shy from asking. All right? I am studying because I love studying. What you decide to do it with love or don't do it at all. This is what I was referring to earlier on. Have a clear aim in mind. All right, studying is better than if I am investing money in a bank, as the qualifications will lead me to the job of my dreams, and the job means salary. Okay, I will study because I will be improving myself and my life. All right? Attitude determines the altitude. So, every scholastic year, I give a particular homework to my students. And as you know, I teach A level, so my students are not younger than 16 years old. They are almost young adults, no? And this is the homework that I give you. I tell you the very first lesson. I want you to think of yourself within 10 years. In 10 years, what I would like to be doing in my life. What job would I really love to be doing? And dream, and don't, like dream, 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 okay? I would like to be a teacher. I would like to be a medical doctor. I would like to be a surgeon. I would like to be a hairdresser. I would like to be a clerk. Every job is important. No matter what you think of, every job is important. Okay? But dream what would make you most happy in life. Illa huwa within 10 years I would really like to be doing this or that. And write it down. No one is going to see what you write, only you. But write it, write it. Don't only think it, write it. Okay? What car I would like to have? Because the car that you would like to have, all right, depends on how much it costs. And if it is very costly, that means that you would require a very good job that pays off, no? So, how am I going to get that job? By studying. And then I can get the job of my dreams with the wage of my dreams, and I can be in a position to buy the car of my dreams. What house would you like to have? All right. Again, would I like to be married or single or have a partner? Think about that as well, yes, and write it down. Right? Because what you can dream of, Walt Disney said this, you can achieve it. You dream, let no one in the world discourage you. Alright, if there are people around you who say, Leta, don't think of becoming a doctor, oh Matarat, you don't know how difficult it is. You're like, say nothing. Alright. And work hard for your dream. I always say this motto, dream big. Work hard to make your dreams come true. Okay? And then keep this paper or wherever you write it. And after 10 years, you go and look at it. All right? And see what you achieved. All right? If we don't achieve them, it might be that along the years we encounter different situations or experiences that change our mind. Nothing bad stuff. It's a very, but this is something that is going to motivate us to study. All right? Mela, cognitive psychologists have mapped many internal mechanisms in progress as the brain processes the learning of different kinds. This is not something in the air. These very, very important people, the cognitive psychologists, they put those wires that can fats on the brain of human beings. And they really were seeing the spikes and the graphs, all right, as the person was learning, the processing of learning of different kind. All right, so these are proof, black on white, written, that these are proofs. How that learning translates to different forms of memory. How it is retrieved. When I was nowadays, I have my son, and with my son, sometimes I help him with the homework, but the homework like math, algebra, I have learned it tens of years ago, so I forgot most of it. But then it's very interesting to see how the brain retrieves the information after 20, 30 years, and I can still remember. So yes, right, when you study with passion, and you love studying, what you learn is kept in there, okay? How it is retrieved and how it becomes transferable to real life applicable scenarios. It's not only important to learn papagal by heart rote learning just to pass exams. It's nice to pass exams, but it's also nice to be able to perform critical thinking, association-based problem solving, reasoning. These are all skills necessary, essential in our lives, that we attain when we study with determination, with passion, with love. All right, and these we're going to carry with us all our lives, in every aspect of life, not only during your job, on your workplace, in every aspect of life. Reticular activating system, RAS, I'm going to refer to this, reticular activating system of the brain. It sifts, like when you have a sieve, passatur, all the sensory stimuli, all right, what I hear, what I see, etc., based on importance to survival. So this is a very fascinating part in our brain, that whatever we hear and see and feel and perceive, all right, it is sifting, it is analyzing. Is it important for survival? Yes. So yes, we keep it. Is it? No, it's not important. Neglect it. Put it aside. So our brain, this very important part of our brain, is always all the time selecting. And selecting in most parts, in particular, the things that is beneficial to our survival. All right? It filters all the sensory information that comes in. But 1% of the information is kept by the learner. And sometimes we find this shocking. How comes it, Madaf? You know how many things I hear during the lectures? In 1 hour lecture, you know how many stuff I hear. Does that mean that I'm going to forget 99% of that and only remember 1%? So sometimes this is shocking, but I'm going to speak about this as I go along, all right? So from 1 hour lecture or 2 hours lessons, like in my private lessons, I spend 2 hours, all right? What will happen to the 99% of the content? What shall I do to benefit from more than 1%? So, how do we activate our amygdala, all right, the emotional center of our brain, to get information through the RAS, so that I can make its way into the storage system of our brain, the hippocampus. Hippocampus is the area in our brain, is the section that stores the knowledge, the information. I want a lot of information to go in there. Brain-friendly teaching is the solution. Brain-friendly teaching, because this utilizes the neurological research, and all depends on the nature of the stimuli. Tell miss, what in lesson, during a lesson? What are the stimuli? Not hearing your voice all the time, talking and explaining, and perhaps we look at the monitor. The area of brain-friendly teaching emphasizes on storytelling as part of the teaching. So during my lessons, no matter what the lesson is, I always try to start with a story. All right. I am not saying that I'm using this technique all the time with all parts of the syllabus, because otherwise that will become boring and it is not effective anymore. But yes, I use a lot of stories because, number one, I want the students to understand the principle behind it, the concept. And once the brain understands well the concept, then we apply that concept to the biological explanation, especially when we have part of the biological content that is quite challenging or difficult to understand. So first, I start with a very easy everyday life example. And then I apply it. For example, let me give you an example to understand me. There is this principle that we teach in the topic of respiration about negative feedback mechanism of the enzyme phosphofructokinase, what activates it and what inhibits it, basically. And I start with this story. I say, let us think of a baker, il-furnar tar-raħal. All right, and the baker, his role is to bake the loaves. Jaħmi daw il-ħobsek tal-Malti. And so he has the shelves in his shop, all right? If he sees a lot of loaves on the shelves, all right, And the people today didn't buy loaves. For example, I give two scenarios. The same baker, enough, let me use Hattart, where I live, all right? It's Christmas Day, and all the people in the village, they do the Christmas lunch and they invite everyone in their families and friends to eat. So in the morning, they run to the baker to buy not only one loaf, but two or three loaves for the Christmas lunch. So the baker, he looks at the shelves in his shops and he or she sees all the shelves empty. Demand is high, the demand is high, the people are coming and they are buying all the loaves. So, seeing the shelves empty, what does he say to himself? Hey, sir, let us work more. We need to bake more loaves because the demand is high. So the process of baking increases. On another scenario, it's another day, it's summer, all the people at Hattar, they left Hattar because they went to live in their summer houses in other villages near the seaside, and the baker goes, looks at the shelves and he sees all the shelves full of loaves. He said, people are not coming, they are not buying the loaves today. So seeing a lot of final product, the loaf, that is the final product of his procedure, that makes him say like, I'm going to take a break. I'm not going to bake any more loaves because I still have a lot of product here that hasn't been sold. And then once we understand that concept, we go on the process of respiration. So we don't have a baker now baking loaves. We have these enzymes like phosphofructokinase that is trying, and the aim of respiration is for the body to do the energy, breaking down the glucose, so that we end up with energy in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. So if the body has a lot of ATP, what does phosphofructokinase say? Oh, I have a lot of final product. Let me take a break. I don't have that much demand. So ATP acts as an inhibitor of the enzyme, all right? But if the ATP is broken down and we have lots of AMP, adenosine monophosphate or adenosine diphosphate, isn't it as if the baker is looking on the shelves and he's seeing everything depleted, empty, because there's a lot of demand and all the villagers are buying his loaves, no? So what does he say? Let us work more, Isa. We need a lot of more of baking. Eh? But now the phosphofructokinase, that is not a baker, is that the ATP is being depleted a lot in the body. Hey, let's work more because we need to do more ATP. So AMP and ADP are activators, while ATP is inhibitor. So I try to hurry up. To give you just an example, if you didn't understand that thing, don't worry, because usually during the lessons, we do it much more slowly, and until I don't stop until I see that everyone understood the concept very well. And another thing that I do is after that I lecture, after that I do the explanation, I ask each and every person to repeat and explain that concept to me, especially if it is a difficult concept. All right, and I will not stop until I see that everyone understood it. So that's part of the storytelling. The story triggers emotions and also stimulates neuronal pathways for improved processing of stimuli into stored memory. Sometimes I encounter students say, Miss, you know what came out in the exam of the ATP and the phosphofructokinase? And you know what came to mind? The baker in his shop looking at the loaves on his shelves. Because a story can trigger emotions, and especially if you, during the lesson, people started laughing. We're learning A-level biology, something very difficult, and you are telling the story of the baker here, and some people start laughing. You remember when the teacher was explaining phosphofructokinase and she came up with this baker, how much we laughed during the lesson? Emotions, all right? Mela, often teaching that has the most resonance, the most effective teaching, is with a subject matter known to the peak interest of the learner. If while I am teaching, all right, first I analyze my students and I see what they love in life. For example, a person who is very interested in sports, I might think of examples related to sports because that person can understand better the concept if first I explain in terms of the sports. And if a student loves singing or art or drama, it would be better if I try to explain the concept on something that he or she loves. So as a teacher, it's important that we first understand our students to know what is their peak interest. Its stimuli spark long-held interest on a certain topic based on relevance that quickly garners attention. All right, sometimes we are like explaining this and explaining, and no matter how good a teacher is, sometimes students that are sitting down in a classroom from 8 in the morning till 5 in the evening, all right, even if they are the best of students, because this happens to me as well. I'm a learner, as I told you, I never stopped learning, but sometimes I have lectures and I feel like tired and I feel like sleeping no matter how good the lecturer is. And in the meantime, I start feeling shy because I feel that I'm not showing respect, but the reality is reality. Especially if I spent a whole night correcting, because after work, my priority is my son, so I don't work after work. I work at night mostly, so it depends on a lot of things. Or sometimes I feel like I have a headache, or I'm sick, or something came up and I have some problems at home. All right, all that is going to deviate my mindset, and I'm talking about me as a student. All right, I'm referring to you as students. So, as soon as you're like in the middle of, I'm not understanding anything, I can't focus, and the teacher starts talking about enough, in my case, she festival, singing, oops, she triggers my attention. So that's why as teachers, we need to know the students, so that if we see like we need something to trigger their attention, it's not nice for us to say, hey, Mario, attention, you're sleeping. It's not nice, all right? As we try to find other ways how to get the attention of the other person without embarrassing anyone, okay? So, let me see what I've written here. Oops, I can't go back. Correct. Mela. Knowing what interests my students, example, sports, singing, drama, greatly amplifies connections and steers emotions through their memory storage when existing knowledge based on real life situation or experiences can be linked to biological explanation. All this strengthens the brain's mechanism to store and retrieve the information. Okay. So, example, glycolysis. We start with the structure of the glucose. When it gets phosphorylated, it removes the hydrogen. And I say, all right, get out a periodic table, all right? And I say, can you tell me how heavy it is, a hydrogen? Everyone looks. One atomic mass unit. All right, let us imagine that it's 1 kilo, all right? And now we have this glucose carrying 1 hydrogen, all right, 1 kilo, and you say, Isma, remove that 1 kilo, that 1 hydrogen, and instead of it, I'm going to put on you a phosphate group. It's when we find on the periodic table how much a phosphorus weighs and how much these oxygens weigh together, right? They weigh quite a lot compared to that 1 AMU. Imagine she's 79, okay? Like, all right, you're carrying a haversack and you are only carrying 1 kilo sugar per example. Now, I tell you, come here, let me open your haversack. I remove that 1 kilo and instead I put something that is 79 kilos on your back. Oh, miss, that's very heavy. I'm going to change my shape with all this heavy weight. And this is what happens to glucose. All right. So um, uh, this is like how I teach. All right, I say to make real life situations because then when it comes in the exam paper and you see phosphorylation of glucose from glucose to glucose 6-phosphate, what does this mean? It's easier for you to try to remember of the example of glucose carrying this haversack with 1 kilo and then you're removing this 1 kilo and putting 79 kilos instead, and it changes shape and you have this isomerism, and from this hexagon shape it becomes pentagon shape because it becomes fructose 6-phosphate, and of course I'm going through it very I'm hurrying up, all right, I'm being very fast, but to give you an example of how I Mela, Cognitive psychologists suggest that there are different stages of processing in the brain, the shallow processing and the deep processing. The shallow processing involves structural processing. Structural. So, as a teacher, how am I going to make sure that I am helping you in the structural shallow processing? By giving your notes with the most important terms like bold, or I underline, or we do the text in a border. Isma, whatever you see in this board and box, it's important to learn. That's shallow structural processing, structural, because we are doing bold, underlining, text in border. There is also phonemic processing, auditory processing. All right. So we use also this technique of trying to use phonetics of the word, the sound of the word. All right. For example, let me give you a very simple example that you know from O level probably. Those of you who already did O level. We have the heart, and you know that in the heart we have the tricuspid valve and the bicuspid valve. All right. So when I ask a question, I do like this. Look. Which valve is on the right of the heart? Right, not left, right. Is it the tricuspid valve or is it the bicuspid valve? And all the students, even if they are like nodding and sleeping, they say, what is this teacher saying? Like her tongue got stuck or something, you know, and they start laughing, Miss, you're so funny, you know. And then it's very easy, even if you don't know biology, you know, right, tricuspid, not bicuspid. So it's easy for you to remember. And I always tell my students, there's so much to remember and to know almost by heart. Let us use every technique possible to help us understand and remember better. I want to facilitate your method of remembering. So every excuse is good for us. And like when you say autonomic nervous system, doesn't the word autonomic resemble automatic, working by itself? So we tried to do phonemic processing. But that is shallow processing. What about the deep processing? Semantic processing converts to memory based on association to existing mental inventory. We see what we already know. All right, we have an inventory in our brain of experiences, of things that we already know, what we are familiar with from our everyday life. And we try to associate new things with these things that we know very well. All right, like now there are many examples that I can tell you. All right, like what I told you, a baker with the shelves empty or the shelves full, the final product is the inhibitor, the beginning product will be the activator. All right, best method to use this is to use the processing to everyday life experiences. All right, and the ways to implement this is imagination. We have to imagine, and it's very nice. It's a good technique for some, not all the techniques work best for every single person. I told you there are different persons, everyone is unique, and everyone has his or her own way of learning the most, okay? So some people find imagination, all right, better doing the story, all right, not and relating to biology, all right. So this happens, and then after this happens, because the story goes like this, all right. So it's nice to formulate a mind map, and I'm going to show you very soon an example of that. 2, rewording. Rehearse the information you have just learned in your own words as per your understanding. And this I use it a lot. When I do a lesson and I explain something and I make sure that I have explained in the best possible way, that is not a guarantee that each and every one of the students in front of me understood it, because I am convinced that they did. From what I am thinking to the reality, what's going on in their brain, it could be that I have not reached them. So then I start asking them, all right, Mela, I tell them prior to my explanation, I'm going to explain this concept, And be very attentive. Ask me whatever question you want, because after that I'm finished, I'm going to ask you to describe the process to me. So they know ahead that they have to pay attention and that they are going to be asked to repeat the explanation back to me. So if they are not understanding, Miss, but I didn't get it this one. Can you explain again? Yes, of course I can. And then, are you sure you're all right? You ready? Okay, Mela, for example, Anna, can you explain this concept back to me in your own words? And that is rehearsing. And why is positive feedback is very important, and rewards, brava, proset, tara kemm inti tajba, you know? It's very important for us teachers to guide the student how to make the best use of the biological terminology, the bombastic words, so that they are most effective when they come to reproduce what they have just explained to me as written on the exam paper. And this is rehearsing. And this is a very important technique. And sometimes I give this when I don't have time, because our syllabus is so big, we don't have that time. That I give them these tasks as homework. This one, next lesson, you're going to start the lesson by you describing this to me. All right, in the meantime, have a week. You have ample time to ask Michelle, you get stuck or something. Okay? And method of loci. Associate the principle of the topic to locations. Sometimes it's nice to think of something you've done even when you went abroad. You think of a location and how you moved from one place to another and what you did, and associate the process of biology. All right, first I went to place A. There were this, what was the environment, what are the things in the environment that are going to help you link and remember things in biology, then move to another location. What's the new concept? How am I going to link one thing to another? What is there in the environment that's going to make me remember what I need to explain? And this helps us, especially when we are preparing essays for paper 2. So this is something like this. This is a mind map about animal tissues, for example. Form organs or form organ systems that work to maintain homeostasis through negative feedback mechanisms such as thermoregulation in endotherms and exotherms, by torpor, adaptive hypothermia, includes activation, hibernation, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so at the end, but it's fun, doing it. You think of locations and a holiday that you've been. Of course, I will train you more. We will do one together at the beginning so that you learn, train yourself how to do linking to an experience and locations that you've been to. So that in the exam, if you see a title of an essay, you think of that, link. All right, you look around you, you think, you close your eyes, you think of the place and what was there to remind you of the things that you have to write in the essay. All right. Magnetic memory method, using mnemonics to recall larger pieces of information. These lists, acronyms, or specially designed sentences whose words' first letters denote something to remember and utilize it at a much grander scale with memory palaces, mind maps, etc. Alright? This entails building multiple mnemonics highly correlated to one another around the central topic to memorize. Alright, perhaps you are saying, Miss, I'm lost. What are you talking about? Let me tell you something that we learned when we were at kindergarten, but till today I still remember it, for example. All right, and perhaps you learned similar things, but I'm going to tell you what mnemonics are. For example, in kindergarten, the teacher taught us the colors of the rainbow in order, all right, by saying, Richard of York gave battle in vain. Richard R stands for red, of York, orange, yellow, gave battle, green, blue, in indigo, vain, violet. So use the first letter of the sentence to remind you of something else. And perhaps those of you who already did O level, do you remember when you had to remember in sequence, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species? Perhaps the teacher had given you a sentence and you used the first word of every letter of the first letter of every word to remind you the sequence in order. Veru? And we're going to use a lot of mnemonics to remind us larger pieces of information. All right, for example, enough I'm going to give you an essay about enzymes, and there's a particular title. And first, sometimes what I do is I give you a ready-made essay that I know that it is the best essay possible. And then I give you this exam, this task to highlight the important things. And then take out only what you highlighted on a separate sheet of paper. And when you look at the first word, that has to remind you the full sentence or the full paragraph. And you do as many important terms as you feel necessary. And I give you ample time to study well the essay, study well the words, try to remember what the word reminded you of. But then we start grouping the words together to make them even less words. So now one word is going to remind me a whole paragraph, for example, with all the details necessary. Okay? And after that, we have to take the first letter of every word and develop our own mnemonic, our own sentence. All right? And then once you learn the sentence and you say, per esempio, reminds me of Richard reminded me of red. Per esempio, that word reminds you the whole paragraph and the whole mnemonic reminds you of the whole essay. So when you go to do your exam and you have to write 2 essays in paper 2, perhaps it could be that the title comes out and you have to remember the mnemonic, that sentence, and that sentence you are listening and the words remind you the whole paragraph. Okay? Analogies are a great part of making up memory palaces in which we take biology and analogize it to something of tangential relation while exploring the analogy in great detail for extensive mental mapping. All right, so we try to make analogies. You know how this is like, for example, there are many tricks to efficiently train the brain, but we teachers must be aware that what works best to optimize the performance of one student might not be so efficient for another student. So different methods must be employed. Stories, pictures, videos, mnemonics, analogies, dances. Sometimes we also use dances, for example, in our lessons. When we're doing biochemistry, not all the students had studied chemistry beforehand and they find it overwhelming, A-level biology, dealing with all this chemistry, and I've never had an idea of what is a carbon and what is a hydrogen. It's all Japanese, And I do dances. For example, in our syllabus, we have to draw the alpha glucose and the beta glucose, and I tell them, all right, well, I'm going to give you like a recipe. Step number 1, we're going to draw a hexagon with no corners. Step number 2, the upper right corner, you do an O. That O stands for oxygen. Oxygen only has 2 hands. Don't write hands in the exams, they are bonds, And then carbon 1, carbon 2, carbon 3, carbon 4, carbon 5. Issa sew carbon 6 fej ħanamlu itfgħu fuq il-bejt like the pole of the flag. Yeah? And then we come to the dance. So we are doing a very simple dance to remember how we do the hydroxyls and the hydrogens on the molecule, Sometimes you do role plays as well, because when you do the role play one, you're not like all those hours sitting down on the bench, hearing and hearing and hearing and hearing. And now I have biology, and after that I have chemistry, and then I have philosophy, and then I have psychology, and then I have so, And from 8 till 5, then you feel you are drained. I was all the time sitting, and it was worse than working, in a barriera, for example, in a quarry. Very hard work, because you feel drained, listening to all the information for all those hours every day, week after week, month after month, etc., etc. So sometimes it's nice to make something different. Get up and we're going to do a role play. And that role play is going to help your memory, because that concept, you will keep it with you for a long time. Okay? And mind maps and mind palaces, as I showed you. Repetition, revision, practice makes perfect. Whatever the teaching method, it only renders results if the material is revised. You can't say, I have the best teacher in the world, and after 5 I'm going to go home and I'm not going to do nothing because I understood everything in class. Forget it. Even if you're a genius, you need to revise. And there are many ways how to revise. I'm always giving tricks to my students, and I say, 24 hours, you cannot like stretch it, And me, like a mother, I'm a full-time teacher, I work full-time. I'm a mother, so my son is my priority. So I dedicate a lot of hours to my son. But then I have my part-time job. I give private lessons. Sometimes I present shows, as you might see me on Facebook. Sometimes I have singing activities, so I have to study for my singing part. I never stopped studying, so I am all the time doing a course here or there. So I'm studying as well. And some people look at me and say, how do you manage to do everything, to fit everything? Are you Wonder Woman? No! The secret is coping skills and finding out what's best for me. And sometimes when I have so many things to do, ironing, washing the dishes, washing the floor, cooking, taking care of my son, full-time job, part-time job, singing, presenting shows. And I have to study as well. And my studies are not easy. Like, I'm not doing an A-level, I'm doing much more than that. How do you study this? You know what my trick is? I keep this small sticky note. And when I have time to study, I'm also always writing, eliciting what's the most important for me to remember, and writing on these small pieces of paper. And then these small pieces of paper, I fold them into tiny parts, and I put them in my pocket or somewhere in my clothes, And if I'm like, I try to steal time in the day. I wake up, I am waiting for the kettle, like for enough to do coffee. I take out a paper and I read it, put it back into the coffee. I'm waiting enough in the traffic, I have a piece of paper. And these are short pieces of information, And today you are much more technological than me. I use these small pieces of paper. Today you have the notes on the mobile. Yeah? You write like a few sentences there, and you say, today I must make it a point. This is so difficult and so hard. It's so challenging, but I'm not going to give up. I'm going to promise myself that I'm going to read it 10 times today. And sometimes you're waiting for the teacher to connect to the interactive whiteboard, get out it and read it. And sometimes you're like waiting for the photocopies at the shop and read it. And sometimes you're waiting because you are going at the canteen to buy a coffee, and you're waiting for that gentleman to prepare the coffee. A few seconds, you don't need more, you read it. Steal time. Always try to find the coping skills that work best for you. Everyone is different, so everyone has to find your own coping skills. Reading, highlighting, rewriting, summarizing, rehearsing, like I have already explained, self-testing, analyzing feedback given by the teacher, all work to reinforce the processing into the long-term memory. Conclusion: a limitation to our learning is the attitude we adopt towards it. By no means is learning something new in biology or any other subject easy. Motivation and determination are essential to the learning process. To believe that you will find biochemistry or plant biology difficult is the attitude that will lead you to not learning it. Sometimes I get students down. Miss, I've been told that biochemistry is so difficult. I won't manage. How can you say that before even starting to learn it? Don't you know that we teachers are going to start from the very beginning? If you give up before you start, or you have this attitude, Miss, I hate plant biology. We haven't even started the topic. How can you say you hate it? It might be that you appreciate plants so much that you become a fan of plants from now on. So the attitude is all that matters. Don't let other people discourage you. Alright, always good attitude, positive thinking. Alright, learning is not effortless at the end of the day. We have to be realistic. It needs a lot of dedication, but with passion, with good attitude, and you will manage and you will succeed. Okay? To excel in any form of learning and retain that knowledge in your memory, you must put the required effort of hard work, long hours of elaboration, rewording, imagery, and practicing problem solving to gain mastery of the subject matter. So I'm going to end up with the motto that I always tell my students. Dream big, work hard, and make your dream come true. And I wish you